Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions, your home for all things psycho. This is your host, Daniel Moeller. Today we are going to cover Mr. Planet. Where's this comic been my whole life? Oh, this is one of those obscure finds that I discovered deep down in the dark, dusty corner of a flea market in the middle of nowhere, which is my favorite place to find comics or anything, really. So I found this comic. It has no press associated with it. It is copyright by the creators itself. There's no editorial information at all, other than just the copyright stamp, and that's it. No ads. This is it. This is the book. This is as independent as it gets. Mr. Planet, from what I can tell, have only existed for about 5 issues. And the creators are Cheff and Dalia Caravaggi. And Dalia Caravaggi's done some kind of weird, erotic kind of stuff. Jacqueline the Ripper and what was the other one? Disobedient Daisy. Some risque things that definitely I probably will never cover. And then Jim Cheff is a person of diverse passions, from what I can tell on the internet. No major comics career under his belt. He did do a novelization of this comic series, as well as some other novels and collections of short stories. Just weird stuff that you can't find all of them on location. It's pieced together all over the internet. One of the bios I was able to find is says that he has spent several years drawing something called Vaino, a wordless graphic novel based upon the legendary Finnish shaman Vainamoinen, best known by virtue of Elias Lonroy's The Kalevala. Kalevala, even knows it. He has written two profusely illustrated essays on ways of understanding mythology, and the characters in Vaino. He also has been creating electronic music for decades, and apparently, let's see here, he created the Shut Eye Stories broadcast in Scotland during Radio Frenia, an annual festival of sound art hosted by Glasgow Centre for Contemporary Art, as well as a curator for the Rough Windows Radio Hour, which was a 14-part series devoted to old and new electronic music in Flagstaff, Arizona. So this guy is all over the place. Love it. Definitely someone I'm going to be trying to track down, as well as Dalia Caravaggi, and see if I can't get the rest of these issues, as well as the novelization and any other kind of weird stuff Jim Cheff is a part of. There's no clear demarcation of duties in this book. It looks like that they both just combine their efforts, and they don't really give any kind of distinguishing characteristic as just one person solely writer, the other is artist. So I'm going to assume that was a complete collaboration, including this cover image, which was painted. It definitely caught my eye. Just this very nice kind of like Baroque style, which actually carries out throughout the whole book itself. One of the weirdest books I have read in, oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. Because not only is it weird, but it's also coherent at the same time, which I love. So this dude's definitely some Psychonaut material for sure. So let's dig in and take a look. Like I said, there's no editorial at all. Get my tea out of the way here. But we get this Prelude starring this bush with disembodied baby heads floating within it or growing out of it, called the Dream Bush. And it says, "We are the Dream Bush. Listen to us. We are a bush adrift in space, a vegetation engendered by the dreams of ancient people, by their thoughts and prayers. Listen, listen." So it's basically the setup that these are definitely the beings kind of telling this story, which is the story of Mr. Planet, otherwise known as Joseph Planet, who is this fellow with a round head, with a sphere for a head, who is floating out in space himself in this globe called the homunculus. And he is having a conversation back and forth with some voice that we don't see who it is. I believe it's the homunculus itself, like some sort of robotic mechanism, like computer talking back and forth to him. So he's got this laboratory out in space, and he's building this contraption to plant seeds and then spew water to have those seeds grow, like basically immediately to help out a planet in the universe that is undergoing a famine. So you get the sense that Mr. Planet is this being who's traveling the entire universe, helping people out, learning, exploring, so on and so forth. And also you get that sense through the conversation happening with this disembodied voice who's dubbed Double Man. So we have Joseph Planet and Double Man. So this homunculus can do anything. So there was a laboratory there, and within seconds the laboratory's gone, and he's got this like little throne that he sits on where he's drinking a martini, listening to some Mozart, and kind of watching the news. And he learns that there's this church called the Church of Brad and Dwayne, also known as the Church of Non-Deity. So it's headed by these two, kind of salesman type characters called Brad and Dwayne, that is spreading throughout the universe, multiple galaxies. And you get the sense that Joseph Planet is kind of really annoyed by this. He's annoyed by religion. He's annoyed by these fanatics. Anyway, but he did get distracted by this news image, this kind of paparazzi image of Brad's wife, whose name is Glyphis Hyro, and becomes very enamored by her looks. And he kind of starts going down this pathway of reminiscence about how he came to be. So basically, he was a person who was lost in space and came across this, what's called a Goltzen layer, which is that it's that layer of time and space where that can bypass time itself. So kind of like a limbo in time and space, I guess, is how I would describe it. Anyway, so he used to be this regular character, falls into the Goltzen layer, and comes across this cube. Oh, actually, first he has a dream of a cuckoo clock that's made out of chocolate, and then it explodes. And then, getting through that Goltzen layer, he ends up at this giant cube called the Cube Station, floating out in space. Floats into this cube, and it's just this massive complex in the middle of space, full of empty hallways. Let's see. Crazy staircases, wild wallpaper and stray cats, Renaissance paintings. And then he walks into this room, all done up in this very Baroque style, so that's like all over the place. And then he is encountered by all of these robot cherubs with mustaches who begin to give him food, and that food knocks him out, and he goes to sleep. And while he's asleep, they basically replace his head with this ball head and tell him that you have now undergone the process of the baptism of light. And he begins wandering this cube in these endless hallways, trying to look for information about where this cube came from and what happened to him. And there was this woman named, oh boy, I'm losing it now, Pope Dietrich the First, who was part of this organization called the New Wing. She was a poet, she was a scientist, she was a mystic, and a politician, and a pope, which is why she's called Pope Dietrich. And she was evidently the person who created this cube. So, all kinds of crazy stuff. Oh, and they created 7 doubles of him as well. All androgynous, faceless beings with just round heads. So, it's all kind of a mystery, and he's kind of sent out into the universe to it's not really clear, to just travel the universe, explore. And he takes the opportunity, and the homunculus is given to him, that round ball, that round globe. He takes the opportunity to use all these powers, which are almost godlike, to discover more about Pope Dietrich the First. But ends up coming into an adventure. He finds this communique that comes across to him, where this fellow needs his help, old friend of his, and he travels to this planet that is mostly water, but it's starting to dry up, to help this fellow out, because this fellow is trying to do all these marine biology experiments on this planet and needs his help. So he travels to this planet in his little globe, and then he runs into this strange little girl floating on an inflatable dragon with a microscope taking water samples out in the middle of this planet that's practically a giant ocean. And apparently she has this crazy, weird, grovelly voice. So this is where everything was starting to get really crazy for me, because there's no clear lines in this book about who's saying what. It's just boxes with no arrows, no lines pointing to who's saying what. So this gets very confusing very fast. And everybody here has got weird names. The father of this girl, his name is 12 Stephen. The planet is named Constantine. So anyway, he brings this girl on board. She's really kind of nuts. In fact, he even states that she feels like that she might be mad because she actually claims to be the devil at the same time. My name is Legion, and I claim to be the devil. And even talks about that story in Mark 9 where Christ exorcises a demon and puts it into a herd of wild pigs, and they say that they call themselves Legion. And they get all crazy and they run off a cliff. So they're all kind of talking about this. She gets creepier and creepy. This girl is just like wildly insane creepy. And I'm not really understanding, other than she's kind of guiding him at this point and the different experiments she's been doing on the water on the planet, and then takes him to this complex on the planet that to recruit his help, and says that she has a bunch of coins, but in this universe, coin really means book or like data bank, on Pope Dietrich, and will give them to him if he'll help them out. But unfortunately, he cannot read the data. It's like his computers cannot contain that data, and he needs coin converter chips. All while this is happening, there's this Siamese twin who is beating himself up while listening to them. Crazy stuff going on. So he travels to this giant place. He travels in this revolver, which is basically this giant revolver, which is a bus. It's like a space bus. These are all windows. To this giant space station called Big Tex to get coin converters so his computers can read the coins about Pope Dietrich that this little girl that claims to be the devil has on Pope Dietrich. And it's this huge space station that's basically, they call it a mall actually, and it's just all huge consumerism mixed with the religious propaganda of Brad and Dwayne, which is like all over the place. And there's things announcing, a church service that's going to be happening soon, so on and so forth. So he's traveling, trying to find the coins that he needs. In the meantime, we start seeing the Brad character from the Church of Brad and Dwayne and his wife, Glyphis, and you can sense that they're really unhappy. She doesn't really want to be with him. They're both with each other out of necessity, because I guess she's well loved in certain galaxies, but they're coming to this particular place in this galaxy to start impressing the people and really getting them converted. And also, Mr. Planet, Joseph Planet, is encountered by what's called a Michael. A Michael is basically a guard or a trooper of this church. They're called Michaels. To try to recruit people, and brings Mr. Planet to the church service that Brad is going to be happening. Or that Brad's going to be facilitating. So, this just gets weirder and weirder. Brad is having a conversation with these two beings that are known as Punch and Judy, the keepers of time and space, about whether or not he should keep Glyphis around. And there are these weird tesseract head things that are floating, and it's just so nuts. At the same time, we see Brad's brother Dwayne, who wanders into a bar in this like Big Tex space station, gets drunk, and because these are cosmic beings, they're not just like regular dudes. When he gets drunk, his dreams manifest into reality. So he starts dreaming a log being sawed, and the saw comes up out of the his dream space, and starts, instead of sawing the log, sawing a pipe up above. So this guy's apparently caused trouble throughout some other galaxies because of his drunkenness. So we go to this giant sermon, church service, revival thing, and it just gets even weirder. And it's all done in this kind of like gothic sort of cathedral situation. And so there was a choir that comes out made of holographic planets with singing human faces. And there's 8 of them, and they begin singing and floating around the chamber. My God. And basically, in the song that they're singing, they're recreating the creation of that particular solar system, making Brad the center of it, making Brad synonymous with the sun of that solar system. And everybody's going crazy. We love Brad. So that's him, kind of showing off how fancy he is, and he starts doing his little sermon thing. And then there's also this thing called Pixel that was referred to quite a bit. Like, having Pixel is a really good thing. It's like having the spirit, basically. And then after his service, and this is what I found was really interesting, after the service, Glyphis comes out and starts doing a dance to entertain everyone. Now, everybody in this part of the universe apparently are kind of considered sort of small town podunk, so they are all like, ooh, this is too risque, but Mr. Planet's kind of liking it and kind of sees this connection. But what's interesting is that this is it. This is the end of the comic. So the last 2 pages are actually on the front and back cover, or the back cover, the inside and outside of the back cover. And she's on stage, and Glyphis winks at Mr. Planet and basically is saying, hey, that you're the one who's going to take me away from all this. Meet me at midnight. And then to be continued. So apparently she believes that Mr. Planet is going to kind of rescue her from the monotony of living with Brad of the Church of Brad and Dwayne. So that's like another weird complication kind of being thrown into all of this. So yeah, anyway, very, very interesting book. Loved it. I can't say this highly enough. The artwork was incredible. Lot of fun. It wasn't too detailed. It was just perfect. But my only complaint was just the I didn't know who was speaking some of the times. You really have to concentrate and focus and pay attention to the voice that Jim Cheff is trying to give each of the characters, so you know who is actually talking. So that was my only complaint. No lines to kind of distinguish who's talking or not. But other than that, very interesting book, and definitely a Psychonaut romp for sure. So thank you very much, everyone, for going through Mr. Planet with me. I hope to get more of these in the future, and I'll go through them as well. And you all out there, keep it psycho.